All right, what's going on now? 3 o'clock chat here. The Trailblazers return to action coming up on Friday night. The defending champion Denver Nuggets are in town. Tip-off from Moda Centers at 7. I'll have game day at 4:30 here in your home of the Blazers. 6:20, Rip City Radio. Scoot Henderson will start the rest of the season. That confirmed by Chauncey Billups before All-Star break. Charlie Woods, son of Tiger, will compete in a pre-qualifier event as he bids to secure a place in the PGA Tour's Cognizant Classic this week in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming up next. We'll talk with Dick Stevens at 3:20 and focus in on the Portland Golf Show. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away today. And then the host of Rip City Mornings, Justin Myers, will stop by at 4:20. All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you.
You ducked out of sight there for a minute. I was worried.
I did. I have to do everything on my own in the studio. Godfather is incapable of turning on lights for us.
I can't reach him.
I can't wait until we get to 5 o'clock. We have a chance to talk about the No Bull Tour.
Yeah.
These moronic ex-teammates of Michael Jordan now going around to tell their side of the story for riding his coattails and having great success because of his greatness. So I can't wait to hear about that. We'll talk about it coming up at 5 o'clock. Justin Myers is going to stop by at 4:20. We want to dive into the college football playoff format, which has been announced, and I think there's going to be issues with it moving into the very near future. So we'll talk about that with Justin at 4:20. And we have 2 pairs of tickets to give away for the Portland Golf Show, which is coming up at the Expo Center March 1st through the 3rd. So you're not going to want to miss your chance to do that. And we'll talk with Dick Stevens here in a bit. But I wanted to tell you about something that came up today, Godfather, that I think could be a lot of fun. I was out at Hop Stadium, Ron Tonkin Field, talking Hillsborough Hops ahead of the season and discussing our partnership and different things that we can do for each other. And one thing that came up, because I heard throughout discussion that there are times where they have problems with availability, filling the necessary suits to make sure the mascots are on site and in action for every game. And so I said, you know what, KL Wambacher is their general manager.
Yeah.
I said, it might be kind of fun on a night where you have an issue filling the suit.
No.
Yes.
No, you're not.
I have experience. I said, it would really be cool if I could be Barley for a day.
What was your experience in a mascot suit?
Working at Red Robin and being in the big bird suit on brunch Sundays when I'd have to put on the suit, walk around, and then go outside and encourage people to come in and enjoy Sunday brunch. And that suit was hideous because it was heavy and it smelled like 1950s old ass inside of it.
Oh, God.
My guess is that the mascot suits have improved a little bit over the years. So I want to do it. I want to be Barley for a day, to experience what it's like to be a mascot and then have a chance to take video and pictures and just be able to share the experience. So that could be happening this year at Ron Tonkin Field, where I get a chance to step into the Barley suit for a day and be a mascot. What do you think about that?
Oh, I can't wait. I will be there for sure to torment you in every way possible inside that suit. Holy cow. What a night that's going to be.
I think it would be cool to be a mascot because, one, you're incognito. No one knows who you are, and you get to walk around, and you're naturally the star of the show because kids will love you. They want to be close to you. They want to shake your hand. They want you to do this and do that. Now, some kids might be scared, but the majority, the overwhelming majority, can't wait to roll up on you. It's probably going to be exhausting, but I just want to know what the reaction is like to be a mascot. I've always wondered that. I've worked in minor league baseball before, and when I was younger, I would take interest in some of the mascots that we see around. I'm amazed by Blaze at Trailblazer games. Like, that's a full-time gig right there. But, yeah, for a day, I think it's going to happen. Have you ever been a mascot? You've worked a lot in baseball. Did you ever have to put on a mascot suit that you can remember?
No, I never. We talked one time about me being Round Tripper, the Portland Beaver mascot, for a game, but we never actually did it. But honestly, Chad, if you tell people you're going to do that, they might sell it. KL, you're going to need extra employees that night because that's a sellout. People are going to want to be there to see that.
They'll be there to harass me. They would want to have fun with me if they know that I'm the guy behind the suit.
Yeah.
All right, so keep an eye on that. That's probably going to happen. So we'll see how things shake out. Hard to believe, but baseball season's right around the corner.
Yeah.
We're
carrying them again, huh?
Yeah.
We have the hops? Good.
We're going to have the hops again,
Good.
and we'll carry them. And they're hopeful, based on what I heard today, that they're going to get cooperation from the state legislator to be able to get the funding necessary to get that new ballpark in place. And it's not just a new ballpark, but it's also going to provide a phenomenal concert venue where they can have events year-round out there in Hillsborough in the outdoors. Yeah. There's nothing like it in the Portland area. And we've all been up to Edgefield, which I like, but it's not quite what this new place is going to be.
I have a lot of admiration for a city who understands the value of venues like that.
Yeah. Portland, not so much.
Not so much, Chad.
Not so much.
Ever.
All right, the Blazers' second half, the stretch run's going to kick off on Friday. I think the big thing to watch the rest of the way is going to be the two starting guards. We know that Scoot's going to start. That was confirmed by Chauncey Billups. We know Anthony Simons is going to play. And I think the most important question is, how are those two guys going to fit together over the next 28 games? And more importantly, going back to what Chauncey said, will Ant be able to adjust and show a willingness to learn how to play off ball? Because he's going to be put in those situations. Both guys are. And I think that's going to be a critical watch as we head down the stretch. So I'm going to ask you, as you're watching the games, how will you pay attention to the two guards to take notice on what's going on? And how do we watch that?
Well, I think it's a two-part kind of thing, maybe even a three-part thing. You're going to want to see if, in fact, Scoot spends a lot of time off the ball. My suspicion will be, as this process moves forward, he will undertake more and more of the playmaking duties, and you'll see Simons move off the ball more, because that's really the future way I think they could operate, with Simons becoming more of an off guard, a catch-and-shoot guy, a guy moving away off the ball, moving off picks. If Simons can do that, this has a chance to be a really good thing for the franchise.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can. That's what I want to see. The other thing I want to see too, Chad, is how will this work defensively? Can they absorb these two guys defensively? Because I think Scoot's going to be okay defensively. I think we've already seen enough of the way he moves, his athleticism, his strength.
Yeah.
He has a chance to be a pretty good defender.
I think Blazer fans are apprehensive to the idea of two smaller guards being in the backcourt based on what we saw defensively for years with Dame and CJ. And it is tough. That's why when you look at Scoot and Shaden, it seems like a more natural fit because Shaden's a little bit bigger. You've got Scoot, who's a physical body at the point guard position. So I want to see how it shakes out, because the one thing that is just hard for my mind to understand is when you have three guards. You've got Shaden, you've got Scoot, you've got Ant, but Scoot and Ant play the same position, so I'm not quite sure how it fits.
Yeah.
And maybe these 28 games will tell us something. So I'm going to watch that. And I think Scoot's, his development and how he continues to play down the stretch is going to be worth the price of admission anyways, because I think that's the most important storyline. Him developing, him getting up to speed, and then seeing where he's at the end of the year in hopes that he can make that big leap from year one to year two. He has to cash in. They need him to hit and become a big-time player.
Yeah. I think, too, Chad, you talk about what I'm going to be looking at, what you're going to be looking at. It's a huge time for this front office and this coaching staff, I think. Yeah, their eyes are better than ours at analyzing these things, and they see it in practice every day, too. And I think they want to see how this works out. If it doesn't, then I think the time might come for a change.
Yeah, I've been asked. I asked that before the year began, like, how long can you go with those three guards? And I was told 12 months, maybe 18 months max before a decision's going to have to be made. But that's the real, challenge for the front office, is to make sure you have as much data as possible, because when you got to make tough decisions, you want to make sure that you're moving the right pieces away and sticking with the right group. And as you've talked about, identifying the players that are going to be a part of this team moving forward as you go through this rebuild, that's critical.
It is, Chad. And you come to a player like Anthony Simons, who I think we all believe is an all-star in the making. And you trade him away, it's a heavy price. And if you make the decision to trade him, that's fine. But then you got to make sure you get value back for him. And I worry that not enough people in the league see him the way we see him. And if you deal him, you better get market value.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the key. You got to get value back. And I'm just happy that the team is in a position now to where they've got cap flexibility, they've got some draft picks, and they've also got some veteran pieces where they're not handcuffed. They've got the ability to make some maneuvers now if they choose to do so. And those moves are critical because the assets that you've accrued over the last couple of years, you've got to make sure that however you use those, that it cashes in.
Chad, there's no doubt about that. And really, they put themselves in a position where this will be the third year in the lottery. Okay, that's fine. But every move you make, whether it's the draft, a trade, a free agent signing, any of that has to be right on the money. You can't afford to miss on too many. Yeah, you can miss on one or two, but you're going to be making several moves now in the next year, I would say. You better be good with them.
All right. That's Dwight. I'm Chad. You got the Rip City Drive. You can hit him up on social media. You'll find him there at Dwight Janes. You'll find me there at Chad in Rip City. Telephone number is 503-248-0620. We have 2 pairs of tickets to give away today for the Portland Golf Show that we will do. We're going to talk with Dick Stevens from the golf show coming up here in a few minutes and get the details. It's coming up March 1st through the 3rd. Justin Myers is going to join us coming up at 4:20. We want to get his take on the college football playoff format. Do you have an issue with the top 4 teams being conference champs?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I think if you're going to have a 12-team playoff, can we just get the 12 best teams, regardless of who won that conference playoff game? I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, somebody's going to sneak in that doesn't belong there, and now we're right back to where we were before.
Yeah. Yeah, even when they get it right, they can't get it right.
And, Chad, when you take the top 4 seeds and give them to conference, those 4 teams get a bye. They only have to play, 2 games to win it? Or 3 games to win it, I guess. 3 games to win it. The other teams all have to win 4 games. That's a big thing.
Yeah, it's a big deal, especially when you're going to have a ACC or Big 12 champ that will probably be at 9-3 or somewhere in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And they will pale in comparison to the other teams that are at the top of the rankings. So we'll talk with Justin. I would just take the top 11 according to the college football rankings by the committee and then add the 12th team in, which is your conference champ from the group of 5. And there you have it. I hate that they place such an emphasis on conference championships, but they want their conference title games to mean something, of course. It's ridiculous because the conferences are not equal. They're just not.
Yeah.
If you play in the ACC or the Big 12, that's not the same as the Big 10 and the SEC.
Yeah. Well, how many teams is the SEC going to get in this thing out of 12?
And
3,
the Big 10. I mean,
4?
we're talking about good teams.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Dick Stevens coming up next, and then we have tickets to give away for the Portland Golf Show. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, the website is portlandgolfshow.com. It is coming up March 1st through the 3rd. It's going to be at the Portland Expo Center. And joining us once again on the Rip City Drive to discuss this awesome event is Dick Stevens. Dick, welcome back to the show. It's great to have you on.
Oh, it's always my pleasure. I feel like the golf season kicks off when I get to come on Rip City Radio. So thanks, gentlemen.
Well, I appreciate it, Dick. And I tell you what, I'm jonesing to get out in the course and play. And I know I'm just a couple of months away from greatness to be out there on the course. And the golf show is a great way to kick it off. So why don't we start with this? What's being added this year that's different from the years past? It's one of the best shows of the year, but give us the details on 2024.
Well, some of the things what's needed, this is the 30th annual show. And for those that have been to the show once or dozens of times, it's the oldest show west of the Mississippi. That's a kind of a cool little distinction. The show's in Chicago, and there's a few shows back east have been at it longer than Portland. But we're celebrating our 30th, and a few of the things that are different and exciting is we've expanded some of the interactive zones at the show. And we've got more simulators than we've ever had in there. And then also we've got these new swing experiences where we brought in these swing training companies to come in and work with the golfers to make it as interactive as we possibly can. We're just stoked about it.
Yeah, I've been several times, Dick, and enjoyed it every time. And what I liked is not only the experience of trying to win a prize putting or getting to swing on a simulator. There's a lot of things there from exhibitors for sale. Are you going to have a lot of people there with sales on apparel and shoes and all that kind of stuff? Because I have to tell you, I've spent a lot of money there, and it's been well spent.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a golf shopping mall. In addition to all the indoor driving range, the 120-foot driving range now that we have with Red Tail and all the manufacturers, and PXG's bringing their tour fitting cube again to the show. Tons of equipment, shoes, apparel. It'll be about 9,000 square feet of sale opportunities for people to pick up soft goods, golf balls, and then everything under the sun of the stuff that just came out at the PGA show in Orlando.
Hey, Dick, you know what's great? You mentioned these simulators. You know, for people who are just getting into the game of golf, they may not understand the technology that's available now, but with the simulators and the ability to track someone's swing, or if you're setting them up for a new set of clubs, like having the data and the information based on your body type and your swing, it's mind-blowing what we have access to in terms of information to be able to make sure that you're getting the right clubs, that you're getting the right data and the teaching when it comes to golf now. It's awesome.
I mean, I've done 130 of these shows. My mind is constantly in the ball game with fitting data and all the technological jargon. There's nothing there we don't understand. But I'll just put this in really simple terms. When you buy a dress, if you're a lady, or a gentleman buys a brand new suit, you obviously want that to fit just right. Your shaft, your grip, and the type of heads that you're buying, that is the new normal. It's not newfangled. It's not fancy or expensive. They've brought fitting down to where a lot of the fittings are free or less than $100 to get the clubs just the way you need them. And this is why golf, in my opinion, appeals to the young players, is because the equipment fits them. And then, like me, I'm 55 years old. I'm now fitting out of the equipment I was swinging 5 years ago. I'm getting more flexible shafts. I'm getting grips that are a little bit larger that suit some arthritic conditions I'm dealing with now. It's just exciting to see the game reach the golfer at where they are at, not the golfer trying to aspire to be something they're not.
Dick, you've talked about how many of those shows you've done. I'm curious, what's your favorite part about that? What are you going to do when you walk in the door?
Well, we come in, and I'm in Kansas City today because we're opening the show in Kansas City this weekend. What I love about Portland is we've done it for so long. I mean, the Northwest is our home. We're Portland people. We're Seattle people. I just love the way it feels in there. I mean, the way that the Northwest feels to the game is different than the way the Midwest feels to the game. And not that one's better than the other. It's just I think we have a higher appreciation for the sport because we're a little bit more captive for a little bit longer because of the wet weather and the rain.
Yeah.
And people are busting to play. You know, and what we're really stoked about with this year's show, like we've done the last couple of years, we have a joint ticket. If you buy a ticket to Portland Golf Show, you get to go to the Portland Seafood and Wine Festival during the joint hours. And if you buy a ticket to the Seafood and Wine Festival, we let those people come in. to our show, which is great. So there's a lot to do. So if you're bringing your family or you're bringing a friend or significant person, I mean, you got 4, 5, 6 hours where you could just have the blast in there. And our show has got 9 different spirit tasting experiences all over the floor, 2 wine zones, a giant beer area with Michelob Ultra. On top of that, we've got whiskey, gin, vodka, tequila, rum tasting experiences. So we have something going on for everybody. And then Saturday, we're doing something we've never, ever done. Amica is sponsoring what we are calling Women's Day. We still have Junior Day. We'd love to have the family and kids come out Saturday. We'll get a round of golf to the kids. But we have special women's programming, women's lessons, women's seminars, women's closest to the pin competition, women's putting competition. We really are embracing the female golfer because they're the ones that have blown the sport up by 30%. So we're trying to give back.
We're talking with Dick Stevens. The Portland Golf Show is coming up March 1st to the 3rd. It's going to be at the Expo Center, and we've got tickets that we will give away on the show today so you can take part in this. What are some of the demonstrations and other things that people have interest in that are going to be on display?
Well, if you go to portlandgolfshow.com, if you click on the activities button, it shows all the things that we're doing that are interactive. And there's probably 20 areas that have an interactivity element to it. But what I'm really excited about is we have the Landfear Automotive Portland Putting Championship, which gives you a round, an offer at Pumpkin Ridge. If you make the putt, you get to come back Sunday for our grand prize. We've got the short game shot in there. We've got the simulators with both KP and long drive competitions. And then our hallmark, as golfers know, is what we give away at the front door. And we've got some great rounds of golf. If you get there early, you get Srixon golf balls. Lots of offers to play golf at Top Golf and some indoor simulation places. And we really try to make sure we take care of these frequent flyers. They've always been there for the show.
Yeah.
Dick, I'm curious, too. I've been out there enough times now. I kind of look forward to the idea that there's a ton of golf club manufacturers there, or their representatives, obviously, but a chance to swing different clubs from different companies. Is that still a part of the show?
Absolutely. So in addition to what PXG is doing with their independent area, we have another cool company coming called Indie Golf that they do a great job with their putters. What we're really excited about is we've got all of the major manufacturers that are there all 3 days. So you're talking with the guys from Cleveland, with the guys with Titleist, with the guys with Ping. And then they are putting the right kind of equipment in your hands, and you're hitting balls into our demo line, and you're speaking right there with the manufacturer's representative. So you can demo the equipment, and then if you want to take that step, you can get fitted for the equipment and go and pick it up at Redtail at a time in the very near future. But that is fantastic when we bring all this equipment. It's the same stuff that was unveiled 3 weeks ago at the PGA Show in Orlando. So for the Northwest, this is the first time people are going to see this equipment anywhere. First time ever. And we're going to unveil it on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at Portland Golf Show.
Hey, Dick, what is your recommendation for people? What are the best days to go? How would you recommend taking in the Portland Golf Show?
Well, I mean, we'd love to have people come back in case they want to see it a second day, which we're happy to have it as a 3-day ticket. You just get your hand stamped, you come back in. As long as you paid once, we don't want to have you pay twice. I think a great way to look at this is on Saturday, it's really rolling. It's fun. There's really no long lines. I mean, you may have to wait a couple minutes to get into an interactive area. But it's just there's a great energy. We have music playing the whole time. Friday is probably the easiest day to come in there. If you maybe come in around noon or 1, it's kind of a chill. You can see all the interactivity. There's no craziness. Sunday is another day where it's a little bit more relaxed. But there's no bad days. And then to go and pop into the Seafood and Wine Festival and then come back into the golf show, the biggest issue is you might smell a little bit like ceviche or maybe a little bit of cracked crab before you come back in the show, but that's okay. We'll let you back in.
Great.
And there's still that putting contest, right? Because I'll probably win that this year.
Oh, man, it's a flat 50-footer. There's nothing tricky about it.
Yeah.
You got to hole it and roll it.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
when we get, there's always about 150 to 180 people will make that over the 3 days. We want people to make it. It's not built to miss. It's built as a little bit of skill. It's got some drama. And, we've had 29 Portland putting champions. We've had one guy that's won it 3 times. I mean, that's really exciting. We've had a 12-year-old win it. Anybody could win it, man, women, child. This doesn't matter about age. And we're rolling brand new PXG putters on there. It's a blast.
All right, PortlandGolfShow.com is the website, PortlandGolfShow.com. That is where you can go to get your tickets. Dick, before you go, any other details that you want to make sure people know about?
I think if they go to PortlandGolfShow.com, it's got everything that you need to know. There's some great front door bonuses, so we encourage people to try to get there early if you want those. If not, the price of admission is well worth what you see in there, and it's just a great celebration. I can't wait to get people's feedback on our new exhibits. It is the biggest show we've ever done by exhibit size, by sponsor commitment, and just by square footage. So it truly is the biggest show, our 30th anniversary. We've thrown everything we've got at it.
All right, PortlandGolfShow.com. It's Dick Stevens here on the Rip City Drive. Dick, we appreciate the time. Have a good time in Kansas City, and we look forward to seeing you here in Portland.
We can't wait to be home. We'll see you there. Thanks for everything, guys.
You got it. There's Dick Stevens. Right now we have tickets that we want to give you your chance to go to the Portland Golf Show. I'm holding a pair of tickets right now. We have 2 pairs of tickets. We'll take the first 2 callers right now, 503-248-0620. Telephone number is 503-248-0620. If you'd like to go to the Portland Golf Show, call now. It is your show, and you take it over. Call Shacker. First 2 callers through will get a pair of tickets for the Portland Golf Show coming up March 1st to the 3rd at the Expo Center. 503-248-0620. Telephone number 503-248-0620. Call now, and you can get a pair of tickets for the Portland Golf Show at the Expo Center March 1st to the 3rd. 503-248-0620. Fire away with your calls. You can get a pair of tickets for the Portland Golf Show March 1st to the 3rd at the Portland Expo Center. 503-248-0620.
Hey, Chad, I was going to ask you, and this is not meant to be an ad for anybody. Or I'm just asking. I'm not affiliated with any of these golf companies.
Yeah.
I keep hearing more about PXG clubs, and I have some friends out at our club who actually went to Phoenix where they make the clubs.
Yeah.
And you can take a tour and watch how they're made and everything, and then they fit you and get you clubs. I've heard that their stuff is very, very good.
That's what I've heard. My irons are Mizuno, and my woods are Titleist. What I love about the technology now, like when I got fitted over at Golf Tech, the way they do it now, they're not trying to push a certain brand on you, right?
Our guys do the same thing.
Or the most expensive
everything there.
club. They've got everything. And so what my guy did, Nick, is he just started bringing me clubs. And I got to hit every single brand name that was in his building.
Yeah.
Every single one. And then what he did, based on the data that was coming back from the simulator, we sat down and we looked at the data, and he said, okay, here are the clubs that you hit the best. Then he said, I want you to pair that up with what feels best in your hands and what looks best to your eye. Because sometimes you'll hold a club, it just doesn't look right, and it messes with your mind. And so based on that data, I picked my irons and I picked my woods. And then I went from there. So he had no agenda in what he was trying to offer up. He's like, we're going to find the ones that you feel most comfortable with, and I'll provide you with the data so you know which ones you're hitting the best, and you go from there.
That's a great way it's the only way to do it, really. Yeah. And people out there who are casual golfers, if you haven't had a club fitting and gotten clubs that fit you, you're not even giving yourself a chance, right?
No, it's the best. I'm addicted to the technology now. Like when I go in and practice, I practice indoors during this time of year. Like I'm going to practice tonight when the show's over. But what's great is like my whole focus this off season was to get my club on plane and to get my swing inside out.
Yeah.
And we accomplished that. And now every time I swing the club indoors on the simulator, I can record every swing so I can go back and watch video on it. And it gives me the exact details on how many degrees inside to out I am. I know that the tour average is about 4.5 degrees inside out. So I've got the number that I'm striving for. But to have that data and be able to work on specific details with the technology that's available now, it's mind-blowing. The next step that would be logical would be to get the simulator at home like some people have done in their garage.
Yeah.
It's expensive to get the proper setup, but what's cool is when I go into Golf Tech now, I've got this, I'm hitting into the wall, but it's a projector screen. So I'm looking out at the wall in front of me, and it looks like a freaking driving range.
Mhm.
And every time I swing, I can see the flight of the ball. And then as soon as the shot's over, I get the immediate data. How many degrees inside out on my swing, how much backspin, how much side spin, every single piece of information you need to continue to work on your game. And this is stuff that, 25, 30 years ago just wasn't available. And now people have these simulators. You can get the same type of data and set it up in your home. And they'll have that stuff out there at the Portland Golf Show.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, which is great for out here because it's really hard to practice outdoors on days when it's pouring down rain. It's impossible. The weather's not good. You've got the rain. You can't really focus because you're dealing with the conditions. So the indoor stuff is great. I'm totally down. I love it. I'm addicted fully, 100%.
You're not as addicted. You said it's impossible to go out. I mean, guys on our course are out there. I watched them this morning. And I mean, I'm looking out there at 9:30, and people are already on the 17th hole.
Yeah.
Now,
Now,
when they started, it was so cold, so wet, and they're there.
I've got all the gear to be able to play outdoors. I've got the gloves. I've got the pants. I've got the jackets.
You
I've
don't
got
have
everything.
the heart, though.
I mean, I'll do it, but it's not enjoyable. I don't enjoy fighting the conditions to go
Yeah.
play golf. I will play when it's cold. I can play when it's really hot. I just don't want to be out there when it's pouring down rain because once the grips start to get wet
Mhm.
and then you're dealing with those issues, it's just too much. I can play when it's really cold, but when it's wet, it takes the fun. It zaps me.
Yeah.
I don't need that in my life.
I've done it, and you're playing with that towel in your back pocket, and it's fine. You need to wipe your clubs off all the time and your hands. Well, by the time you get to the turn,
Yeah.
that towel is soaking wet.
Well-
That's no good.
And I don't like feeling weighted down by having too much gear on.
Yeah.
It took me a while to find the tight gear with the right sweater to where I can play when it's really cold, but not be draped over with too many jackets. I need to be able to move. I don't like feeling bogged down by the gear I'm wearing.
Mhm.
These are issues that go through my mind all the time. How can I make it work? So that's why people move to Arizona. They're like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm retired now. Why am I playing golf in the rain every day? I don't have
Yeah.
to do this. Then the problem is in the Arizona during the summertime is it gets too hot. So you got to tee off when it's still dark outside.
Mhm.
See the issues we got, Godfather? Where's the perfect place to go then? San Diego?
Yeah.
It's not as bad as Arizona or Las Vegas during the summertime.
Right. Yeah.
Where's the perfect place? What is the perfect climate place in the country? Is it San Diego
I
for the
would
more
say
moderate temperature? Hawaii.
Hawaii is
There you go. Hawaii would be
same
the
every
perfect
day.
place.
Yeah.
Every time I've been to Hawaii, the climate and the temperature was spectacular.
Yeah. Never too hot, never too cold.
Hmm.
Just a flood once in a while or a volcanic eruption.
I mean, it was the same problem with, when I worked for the Portland Beavers, those games in April and early May when it's raining outside.
Brutal.
It's brutal. Brutal.
Yeah.
Hard to play baseball in that type of weather. Hard to go and sit and watch a game in that type of weather because you get cold.
Yeah.
All
No,
right.
we used to say, I worked for a minor league team too. And we used to say, the rainouts are no problem. It's the games you play in the rain that are the real problem because nobody shows up. Players are killing themselves in the cold and the wet. It's terrible.
All right, we'll come back. A couple of different things we're going to get to here in a few moments. The NBA has released their requirements for an All-Star game.
Yeah.
Screw the NBA. It's confirmation that we're never going to get an All-Star game here in Portland, which is a real sham and shame because this is one of the most important markets in the NBA, and it has been for a long time with a terrific fan base.
Yeah.
And Salt Lake City's going to get 2 and we get none?
Yeah. Salt Lake City's had to.
Well,
India's had to.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
it's ridiculous. So we'll get to that. Justin Meyer's going to stop by at 4:20. You got Dwight and Chad, the Rip City Drive here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, we'll get to it at 5:20, but I am concerned that Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce might be crazy as well. A lot of crazy people in sports right now. The Mahomes rules, just like the Jordan rules. When I hear that, I'm like, oh, please, come on. Like, you have the secret sauce on how to stop Patrick Mahomes. Seriously, Godfather.
Well, and you open your mouth about things like that, every man wearing a striped shirt in America gets out the notepad and starts writing stuff down.
Yes. And not only that, you prepare the Chiefs because now they're going to be alerted to what you're trying to accomplish, and they'll be ready for it. So we'll get to that coming up at 5:20. You have an issue with the NBA reducing, or they increased it, the number of games that you need to participate in to be able to be considered for postseason awards, MVP, and so on. What do you not like about that? Because we know what the NBA is trying to do. They're trying to force guys who load manage all the time to play more games.
They are. And that's fine. I understand the reasoning behind it. But I took a long look at that, and I started thinking about, Chad, if you can play just half your team's games and still get elected the most valuable player in the league, you know what? You're pretty good, and you may deserve that award. I mean, voters take all that into consideration. They know how many games you play. And some of these guys voting taking it real serious. Most of them do. And they look at all those things, and they weigh them. But if you're that valuable, same making an all-star team. If you can make an all-star team, first team, and only play half your games, that's pretty good.
Yeah. And I agree with your assessment. If you're good enough to be able to be awarded MVP and you played 55 games, then you should be awarded MVP.
Yeah.
I guess my question would be this. How do we get to a point where guys just don't play or choose to sit out, or this load management got out of control? And who's pushing that? Is it the players? Did it start with the teams? Like, who is the one that the force behind it?
It started with analytics, and it started with the teams rather than the players.
Yeah.
Because they had medical studies that indicated that the more you play, the higher the chance is you'll get hurt. Fatigue being a factor, obviously.
Yeah.
So there have been studies since then saying that's not really true, but everybody can come up with their own medical study. We know that by now. Everybody has that. But I think sitting players out is a real thing. And I've seen many cases where the player didn't want to sit out, but the team said, no, you're not going to play that day because we care about your fitness and we have to look out for you. And sometimes teams have to protect players from themselves. I get that too. So it's a real not easy to solve situation. But I just don't like the idea of trying to hold them to a number of games and maybe forcing people into playing games they shouldn't play.
You know, I was looking at Michael Jordan's games played throughout the course of his career. 82, 18 when he had a foot injury, 82, 82, 81, 82, 82, 80, 78, 17 in the season when he came back after his first retirement, 82, 82, 82. And then the 2 years with Washington, 60. In his final year at age nearly 40, 82 games. The best players in the NBA played in as many games as possible when I was growing up. They were always in action.
Look at Karl Malone and John Stockton.
Yeah.
They played every game.
Karl Malone's like the ultimate Iron Man in the NBA with as many games as he played throughout the course of his long and very productive NBA career. I think one of the biggest issues that's facing the NBA right now, among all the other problems we've listed off, I think player availability or not knowing when guys are going to play or all-stars sitting out on a regular basis, that's a big-time problem.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is.
You've got to have your best players on the floor so people have reason to want to go to the arena or tune in to watch you play.
Well, and tune in is correct, Chad, because they're negotiating TV contracts right now, and those TV networks want to know that the stars are playing in the games they are televising, or it's just an automatic tune out. You know, if Luka's not playing for Dallas, well, okay, you're gonna sit there and watch Kyrie Irving all night? Is that what you want to do? I don't think so.
I don't know how they get around this with the games played by players, right? I don't know how you solve the issue because it gets real sticky when you start talking to guys who are load managing or who claim to be dinged up and need rest.
Yeah.
So you're going to step in and force a guy to play. Well, what if a serious injury occurs from that? I don't know how you overcome that.
Well,
And who am I to tell a guy that he's good to play when he might not be good to play?
and as a team, when you make a guy play over his own protests,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of liability there. And when you get sued by an NBA player who may have lost his career, I can't imagine the number of $1 million you'd put on that lawsuit.
Yes, I don't know how you solve this issue. It's a big problem that the guys don't play in every game, but they don't play in every game, and a lot of guys are doing it for purpose to protect their bodies, which I totally understand. If you can sit out a few games each year to extend your career by 4 or 5 years and add those dollars to your bank account, that's a big time incentive
Yeah.
to protect your livelihood for as long as possible.
One of the answers, and teams don't want to do this, one of the answers is forget about the injury reports. If you know your star's not playing tonight, tell people as soon as possible. If you're just going to load manage him, you know he's not going to play that day. Tell people that. So they can either give their tickets to somebody else, try to resell them, or maybe they're going to go anyway. Who knows? But Broadway dealt with that years ago. I mean, I'm paying big money to see Hugh Jackman play the lead in Music Man. You know what? There's always a placard outside the theater saying, Hugh Jackman is ill, so-and-so will take his spot tonight. And I just think there has to be some attempt to notify people that the Stars aren't playing.
I agree. Like last year when I went to Denver, we knew there were question marks about Russ because he had been dinged up with a concussion. So we waited to buy tickets until we got there. And then when we got word that he wasn't going to play, we're like, okay, we're out. We'll go do something else.
Yeah, right. Go watch a movie or something. Who cares?
I don't want to pay full price for a ticket if I know the guy that I want to go watch is not going to be in action, right? It makes total sense. So I don't know what you do. I don't know how you overcome this one. All I know is that it never used to be like this. But the big difference I see also in terms of how kids are being raised in the game of basketball, guys play too much basketball now.
They do. And they're worn out by the time they get to the NBA.
They're worn out because they grow up, they play a specialized sport. They're not playing baseball and football and all these other sports. They focus on one sport. They get plugged into AAU. So you have guys from a young age playing nothing but pick up basketball in games and being on the basketball court nonstop throughout the entire calendar year. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body.
They have these weekend tournaments, Chad, where there's like 64 teams, and the tournament lasts 3 days. You're playing 4 or 5 games in one day.
Yes. That's a lot of wear and tear on the body. A lot of guys back in the old days, you know this because you were around them, but the basketball season would end, and the last thing they would do was play basketball. They would do other ways or find other ways to condition their body, but they got away from the basketball court, and I'm convinced that helped preserve them to a certain extent because they weren't taking the constant pounding on the joints, ligaments, and tendons.
Ron Culp, the late Trailblazer trainer who trained the championship team, he told me he would tell players to get away from the game in the summer. Bill Walton was on a bicycle all the time. Maurice Lucas loved to swim. He was a swimmer in the summer. He would go somewhere and swim. So they stayed in shape, but they weren't pounding their knees on a basketball court.
How much pickup hoops did Clyde play during the offseason?
Hardly any.
Yeah.
He played some golf. I think he ran a little bit, but he's one of those amazing athletes that would still come in the first day
in shape.
He'd win the Jack Ramsey mile,
Yeah. But those other activities were less impactful on his body than playing pickup basketball all day. And that's what the pros are doing now. As soon as the offseason hits, they go elsewhere. A lot of the guys meet up in L.A. They go to train and work out, but they play a lot of basketball. So it's tough. I understand why a player would want to load manage because I do understand the body to a certain degree that if you overwhelm it and you don't allow for proper rest and recovery, there's going to be injuries that will come as a result of that.
Yeah.
The problem is the league, the schedule is probably too long, Godfather, 82 games.
Yeah.
But they're not going to reduce the games on the schedule because that's big money out the window.
That's right.
And no one's going to agree to take less money to play less games.
Yeah, exactly. The players wouldn't agree to it either. Even though it'd be
they like the idea of playing less games, but they're not going to refund that money or give back money to the owners.
Yeah, we'll take 10% of the games off, but we're going to take 10% off your paycheck. No thanks.
No thanks. I'll continue to play the 82-game schedule, and I'll load manage.
I'll sit a few out.
What would be great is if you could reduce the schedule by a small number to where you could get the players in a position with the proper spacing in the schedule to play every game.
That's the ticket. Don't play so many 3 games in 5 days, back-to-backs, all those things.
Adam Silver's got a lot of work to do. Good luck with that, Commissioner. Good gracious.
He doesn't do well with that.
All right. How many five-star hotels does Portland have? And I'm not even sure I know the answer to that. I think I know now. I had no idea until we started talking about it. It all is a result of the NBA All-Star Game. I've wanted one here in town like most of you have for years, and we're going to get punked, forever punked.
Yeah, no doubt.
There's no reason why we shouldn't have an All-Star Game here, and yet they keep coming up with reasons of why we can't have an All-Star Game here with a bunch of bull crap, Godfather. We'll talk about that next here on the Rip City Drive. All right, it's now 4 o'clock, Chad, here. The Trailblazers return to action Friday as they get ready for the stretch run. 28 more games left in the regular season. The Nuggets will be in town defending champs. Tip-off from Moto will be 7. I will have game day starting at 4:30 right here in your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Scooter Henderson will start the rest of the year. That confirmed by Chauncey Billups before All-Star break. Charlie Woods, the son of Tiger, is going to compete for a pre-qualifier event as he bids to secure a place in the PGA Tour's Cognizant Classic next week down in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Justin Myers, host of Rip City Morning, is going to stop by the show at 4:20 as we break down the new format and set up for the college football playoff. All right, Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings, coming up in 20 minutes. It was actually nice to see him and Brendan and you in person this morning. We had a nice little all-staff meeting.
Yes.
Little friendly reminders in the radio biz, but it was great to see him in person. So he's going to stop by in 20 minutes. We got to talk about the college football playoff format and get his thoughts on the conference champs getting the top 4 seeds, which will result in byes. So we'll talk with Justin coming up in 20 minutes, and we'll get to the No Bull Tour involving Scottie Pippen and some of MJ's ex-teammates, which I'm sure is going to be awful. And then also the new philosophy of Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders. He got the interim tag lifted. He's now the full-time head coach. He's got an idea for how to attack Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about that at 5:20. But a good friend of ours, we got to give out some happy birthday wishes, Godfather. Jeff Kafori is his birthday today. Jeff, if you're listening right now, my friend, I miss you. I know the Godfather misses you. Happy birthday. I hope you're enjoying your day out there.
Many happy returns. Say hi to Ivan, your father, for us.
How long have you known the Kafori family?
Oh, gosh. I guess since my high school days. Yeah.
I run into people all the time that you grew up with or used to live close to. Hey, tell the Godfather I said hi.
You know, I'm just happy to hear there's still people alive I grew up with, Chad. Thank you.
That makes you feel better about yourself, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I'm doing all right.
That's what I'm here for. But, Jeff, seriously, man, you're one of the good people. Hope you're enjoying your birthday, my friend. And hopefully we'll get a chance to chat soon and see you. So, Jeff's always working it. He's always got stuff, irons in the fire. He's always got things going on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about this I guess what you would call it, requirements by the NBA?
Yes, new requirements.
If you want to host an NBA All-Star game. And I've wanted this for years. The city of Portland has hosted a couple of NBA drafts and done a very good job. The Tournament of Americas were here. I've always believed that Portland is a city that could host a big-time event like the NBA All-Star game. I mean, do you have any doubts?
No. The city has waited for this for so long. It would be such a big deal. And it's such an economic boon to the city to get it.
All right. So there's basically 3 requirements that's been listed out by the NBA in terms of what you need if you want to have access to an NBA All-Star game and be a host city. And I think this is important to note. The reason why you host the NBA All-Star game, it's because it's great for the city, right? It's a great boon for the city, economic boost. Isn't that the main reason behind it?
Yeah, because the team, the Blazers would be the host team. They
have to work their asses off for that.
It's not only not a moneymaker for them, it costs them money with all the staff they have to hire, all the overtime they have to pay. It's a big headache to a team hosting it.
So you're doing it for the NBA fans in the city and the city itself because of the economic boon that would come from all these people from all over coming in for a few days to fill your city, eat at your restaurants, use your hotels, shop at stores and everything.
Yeah, it would be the Trailblazers' gift to Portland, really.
All right, number 1 on the list from the NBA, 7,250 hotel rooms, and you need at least a minimum of 3 5-star hotels.
I think after you did your homework and I didn't, Chad, about the 3-star hotels, I think Portland might meet this criterion. I think that if you add up all the hotel rooms with all the new hotels that have been built, I think we're right there.
And
I
the
do.
3 5-stars would be the Nines,
Yeah.
the Ritz-Carlton,
Those are the two I thought of.
and the only other one I know would be the old Governor Hotel,
The Sentinel.
the Sentinel now. Does that meet the requirement? Based on what I saw, it does.
Apparently, it should. I'll tell you that.
But I know our good friend Sean Hyken's reporting there are 2 5-star hotels. All I'm trying to say is that there might be 3 which would hit the minimum requirement. So I've never thought that hotel space would be an issue. Now, number 2 on this list, you got anything else to add on the hotels?
No, I think now that there's a hotel within walking distance of Moda, the new convention center hotel,
Yeah.
that would be a big help too.
Now, my son Isaac would just be like, hey, Commissioner, we got Motel 6s. What else do you need, right?
Yeah.
He's big on that. This next one here, the convention center needs to have 650,000 square foot of exhibit space or room space.
Exhibit space.
That is
yeah.
massive.
Yeah, it is.
The Oregon Convention Center does not have that, right? I'm assuming.
No, it's about half that. But
Jeez.
there seems to be some discussion about whether they want one big hall that big or if they want just the total. I don't know. That's lame anyway. I mean, they also have Memorial Coliseum right next door, which is also usable as whatever the convention center can do.
I agree. I've gotten a tour recently. A good friend of mine works over there at the convention center, Kathy,
Mm-hmm.
and she gave me a tour. You forget until you walk around that area. The convention center is a massive, massive building.
It is.
Huge.
And they have the ability to close off sections so that you can make it smaller for certain events.
Yeah. Okay. So that's requirement number 2, 650,000 square feet of exhibit space. All right. Also, 75 nonstop domestic and 20 international flights in and out of Portland. Now, according to the work of Sean Hyken, he came up with the number of, they have 66 nonstop domestic flights, 11 international flights. So they're close, but don't quite meet the minimum requirements of flights.
Yeah, again, come on now. You're going to keep a team from hosting because of that. And honestly, I know Salt Lake City is a hub for Delta, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to guess they don't meet that requirement either. Of course, these are new requirements, and they're requirements designed to keep this event in Las Vegas, Chicago, New York, L.A., and probably Miami. That's where they want to be. They don't want to come to these hick towns anymore, you know?
I can't get over the Salt Lake thing. It's like if Salt Lake can have 2, Portland can get at least 1.
Yeah. And it's such a miscarriage of justice for a team that's been in this league so long, never to have one. That's a joke.
How hard has Portland pushed in the past? I've talked to McGowan about this while he was team president, and I got the feel that they had really investigated the idea or opportunity to host an NBA All-Star game. How much have the Blazers pushed for this over the years?
McGowan, they tried really hard one year. I saw a lot of the stuff they did. They sent a video to the NBA with the Portlandia cast involved in it, trying to make the case. They did all kinds of things, and they didn't get it. I don't know if you have to bid a certain dollar amount or what you have to do. I think you just have to show them what you have to offer. But I was told earlier that in spite of the team saying we'd really like to have it here, they've only actually bid on it 2 or 3 times because they haven't felt they wanted to spend the money, the manpower, and the attention on having it here because it is a big drain on the franchise. That's not good enough for me, by the way. The fans deserve it. The city deserves it. It's hosted and supported an NBA team in the highest of manner for a long, long time.
I agree.
We deserve the game.
I agree. Aren't they going to have one in San Francisco here in the near future?
Probably because they try to get to the new arenas.
Yeah.
If you build a new arena, you have the inside track. We should have had it in the Moda Center right after it was built.
If Portland got a new arena, would they get an All-Star game?
It gives you a chance.
It gives you a chance.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even want to hear about the recent issues with some of the stuff in downtown Portland. And San Francisco's a disaster
Oh,
too.
yeah, worse,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, so this is nonsense. I think it's a shame. This fan base, and I've talked about it, I don't even feel this way because I live here. I just know it. I've been around. The relationship between the NBA team here, the Trailblazers, and the fan base, the people that live here in the community, it's a special one. You've been around the NBA. It's a special connection between team
It is.
and town here.
Yeah.
It always has been. And there's a lot of great fans here who were born here, who grew up here. They still live here. They planted roots here and stay in the state of Oregon. And are Blazer fans. And those people have been supporting the NBA for a long period of time. They deserve to be rewarded with at least one.
You talked about a new arena. I'll tell you this, a new owner, that might push it a little more if it were the right owner. I mean, don't try and
Phil
tell
Knight.
me.
Yeah, Phil Knight could
Don't
get
try
one.
and tell me that they wouldn't give Phil Knight an All-Star game, because they would. And I can go back, too. When they had the Tournament of Americas here and the draft,
Yeah.
oh, man, did Nike step up for that. They had a huge party out on the campus, bussed people out there.
Well, I think the Shaq draft was here, wasn't it?
It might have been. I don't
Yeah.
even remember that year, that
Well,
draft.
You're right. I didn't even
We
think
had
about that
covered
angle.
the finals. Everybody was so tired.
If the NBA likes the ownership, they'll go out of their way to help them, right? I mean, obviously, we know that that's the case. So you're right. Depending on who the owner is, Phil Knight's going to have more pull with the league office than other owners around the NBA would.
And I'm not sure that this ownership, quote unquote, ownership group is real popular in the NBA offices in New York.
Well, we know they're not because we're convinced that the NBA office put out the hit piece with the New York Post on Jody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because again, everyone's got their own interests and their own motives for why they do what they do.
Mhm.
The NBA would love to have Phil involved on some level, especially on the ownership level, right?
Of course.
Yeah. It always gets back to politics, Godfather. It's all bull crap.
And we know how crooked politics are, right?
The worst. I talked to someone recently who is involved in a political matter, and he goes, I always knew it was dirty, but he goes, I didn't understand to the level in which it's dirty until you're involved in it on a regular basis over a long period of time. He said it was an eye-opening experience, and he knew he's not like living in some cocoon. He's
Yeah.
well aware, but he's like, it's worse than I thought.
Yeah. Come out of a meeting and need to go right to the shop.
Yeah, let me go get cleaned up now. All right, we'll come back and talk college football. Pete Thamel's reporting that we could get expansion of the playoff that hasn't even started yet in a couple of years to 14 teams. But let's talk about this 12-team format.
They're smelling the money, Chad.
That's right. I hate all of the leaders that are involved with these decisions because for years they've been screwing us. But you're right. Once they opened up the box and realized how much money is in this game, they're going to keep expanding.
Mm-hmm.
What I don't like is that they're going to put the stupid conference champs at the top of the rankings. Well, we won a conference championship. Well, what conference do you play in, the ACC? It doesn't mean jack to me, you loser. All right, Justin Myers coming up next. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, the host of Rip City Mornings, our good friend Justin Myers. You hear him weekdays 6 to 9 here on 620 Rip City Radio. He is back. Justin, it was great to see you this morning at the office, my friend.
Hey, it was great to see you guys as well. It was great to learn important, valuable lessons in the radio world. Those lessons being, don't play unedited Tupac songs on the air in Sacramento. I'd like to show, a tip of the cap to our good friends in Sacramento who caused us all to have a mandatory meeting, which caused me to push my workout a little bit later today, which caused me to be sitting in traffic right now. How do people get around in this city in the afternoon? What is going on?
I have no idea, but you know what's frustrating is that I'm not used to driving in morning traffic, but this morning, because of the all-staff meeting, I had to make sure that I accounted for that, and so I got on the roadways and gave myself a little over an hour. And it took me an hour to get from Vancouver to Tigard. That's insanity because when there's no traffic, it's like a 25-minute drive.
It is. It's nuts. I'm in it right now. I don't know how anybody gets around this city. Look, I understand that in the department store of life, we are the toy department, right? I understand that. But, every once in a while, it's rough work what we do, having a mandatory meeting in the middle of the day and just throwing off our schedule completely.
I know, it's really tough. You know what's funny is that we grew up in a different era in radio where I had bosses that were like, look, if you mess up or you do this, you're done. And so a hot mic, you never said certain things around the microphone. You always made sure you knew what was going out over the air and knew where the dump button was. And I'll never forget because when I used to work with Gavin Dawson, right, when I first got into radio at another station in town, we were doing the postgame show at night, and I forgot to turn the dump button on, and one of the callers let loose with an F-bomb, and it went out over the air, and I knew we were dead, and all I did was get an email after the show, and it says, if you two scholars want to continue in this line of work, make sure that never happens again. And that's all he said. He never said a word. He just sent the email, and I was like, that's my fault. I was scared stiff, and I made sure that never happened again.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, it's the one fear I think in every broadcaster, right, in the knot of your stomach, which is like, boy, that hot mic, it'll get you. It'll get you.
And I know you've never had any personal experience with something like that, have you?
Yeah. Which is funny, Dwight. Yeah, because I did tell a story on the air today about how my brain. I was doing a baseball highlights for Mariners postgame one time. My brain said hit. My mouth said shot, and I accidentally combined the two down the left field line. The Mariners postgame. The Mariners stunk. They were in last place. Willie McClendon was about to get fired. I don't know if anybody was listening, but yeah, it was an interesting occurrence down the left field line that I described.
And you said Mariners stunk. That would be a funny word to use in, combination with what you said.
You know what? For the way I described it and for the way they were playing, it was actually quite appropriate, Dwight.
Well, Justin, it's great to have you on the show. We want to talk college football with you. We got word this week that the College Football Playoff Committee has agreed to the format, and they're going to put value in the conference champions. And we know that the top four teams, the teams that will get buys, all will be conference champs. What do you think about the idea to value the conference championship?
It's not a surprise, as we know the conferences turned these championship games into NASCAR, right? Whether it's Dr. Pepper or whether it's Allstate or whether it's UPS. I think one year was the Pac-12 was UPS. Whether it's any of these, like they are sponsored money-making events, and there was no way that the conference committee or the conference chairman who were running this whole thing, who were running point on this whole college football playoff, was going to allow a playoff format to devalue their conference championship games. So they have now created a 12-team format. You now have automatic qualifiers in these conference championship games, so they kind of become almost become like a play-in type of game. Sure, there's going to be teams that are going to lose and are still going to make it, but it's going to be kind of a play-in. But there was no way they were going to allow their conference championship games that Dr. Pepper and Chick-fil-A and all these companies pay millions and millions of dollars to sponsor to lose any value, so they made them automatic qualifiers.
So, in the end, who pays the price for that, Justin?
That's a good question, Dwight. I think Notre Dame probably, if in fact Notre Dame was ever going to be relevant in the next 5 to 10 years. I think Notre Dame probably pays the biggest price. The other one would be, somebody at some point in the next three or 4 years is going to be essentially the football version of the bubble team, right? That's the thing we've never had in college football. There will be a team on the bubble that's going to be sitting about 11 or 12, and there will be, just like we're going to see next month in March, there will be some team win a ACC or a Big 12 conference championship game at 8-4 and 9-3, and there may be a 10-2 or even a 9 or an 11-1 team bounce because they're sitting there on the bubble. So that's who it's going to affect. We see it in basketball all the time, right? If you're like Oregon right now, and Oregon I don't even think is on the bubble, but if you are a team that's kind of on the bubble and you see one of those upsets in the Mountain West or the West Coast Conference, right? Gonzaga is always one of those teams that if Gonzaga loses the West Coast Conference tournament, then you lose a bubble team. Well, that's going to be in football now.
Justin Myers with us. Why not just take the top 11 teams from the playoff rankings and then add in the group of 5 conference champ?
Because they don't going back to what we talked about at the beginning, Chad. They don't want to devalue those conference championship games. They have made them a spectacle. They have made them a money-making venture. And so I think you could see, if you just did a straight committee picks top 11, and then you get the charity invite to the best group of 5 team, you could at some point legitimately see potentially a team like Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan or Alabama or heck even Oregon if they're on a run, maybe rest. You can have that when you've got Dr. Pepper and Chick-fil-A and Allstate paying $20 million. So I think that was the biggest reason is they want those conference championship games to actually matter more than just a title and a banner and a trophy. Now it's got tangible consequences. You are an automatic qualifier. I think that's why they did it.
Yeah, and like you pointed out this morning, the issue that's going to arise there is what about Georgia this year where they won every single freaking game throughout the year? They lose the conference title game. They're one of the top teams in the country. That team would miss out on a bye.
They would miss out on a bye, and or you go back even, Chad, go back 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Cincinnati was, I think, the number 5 or 6 team in the country in 2021 out of the American, and Pitt won the ACC. And if you had that scenario, those 2 teams are now automatically qualified, and then you see a domino effect. And, yeah, a top 3 or 4 team could lose a bye. Then a top 10 team could bounce out of the top 12. It's going to be a lot of drama, but there's going to be even more complaining because that's what we do in college football, right? We create something, we complain about it, we think we fix it, it creates more complaints, and the cycle continues.
Justin, Pete Thamel reported today they're talking about going to 14, and this thing hasn't even started at 12 yet. I think they smell the money coming off this whole thing. But for me, I'd go from 12 to 16 to make it a logical tournament with everybody playing the same amount of games and no buys. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think at this point we've crossed the point of no return, right? There's going to be a day it's going to be 32, right? That's just what it is. You look back at the history, and here's how the cycle went. We used to play the bowl games, voted on a national champion. We all decided that's kind of silly. All right, fine. 1 and 2, let's just guarantee they play. 3 complained. All right, if we go to 4, we promise we'll never complain. We said that back in 2004 when Auburn and when USC went undefeated and didn't get a chance. So fine, just give us 4. We'll never complain. And then we started complaining, and now it's like, well, just make it 12. Then it's going to be 14. Then it's going to be 16. College basketball coaches, and Dwight and Chad, you guys know this, they complain not being the 65th best team. Never mind win your games, but they complain not getting into the tournament being the 65th or the 66th best team. If you move it to 16, it'd be an interesting tournament with no buys. I would like to see all the teams on campus game in that first round, which would be kind of fun. But then 17's going to complain, and 18's going to complain. And the biggest reason why, as you guys know, is because these coaches have postseason incentives in their contracts, and if they make the college football playoff, they get a bonus. These conferences know that if you play an extra game, that's more advertising, that's more dollars. Never mind that ultimately there's going to come a number that is going to be a bit too far, and you can't go backwards.
All right, Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings here on the Rip City Drive. Well, Justin, we appreciate the time, and we'll wait for college football season. One thing for certain, regardless of the format, the playoff, the expanded playoff, I think it's going to be great. I know you were a little apprehensive, but I know you're excited about it now.
I've instituted a no more pouting policy today. We've got a pouting alarm on Rip City Mornings. I'm done pouting about it. I'm done whining about it. There is going to be some awesome things. And like, how awesome is it going to be, honest to God, guys, in December to see an SEC team like Georgia or Alabama or Ole Miss have to go play in Columbus, Ohio in December? It's good. In like the freezing cold. It's going to be awesome.
There's no question. No question about it. I can't wait. I love it, man. Hey, enjoy your day, my friend. Oh, by the way, how was the 2-year anniversary weekend that you guys shared, you and the missus?
2-year anniversary was great. Got a nice cabin in Sisters. Had a beautiful dinner. Got to take the dog, so Crash got to go on the trip. Got just the perfect amount of snow to where it was aesthetically pleasing, and then the sun came out and got to drive over the pass clear. So we were golden. Beautiful trip to Sisters. Highly recommend. Sisters underrated place in Oregon is Sisters, Oregon.
I agree. I know you agree as well, right? Godfather, it's beautiful there.
There's a great hotel and a great restaurant in Sisters.
Did you take Highway 22 all the way out?
Yeah, had Highway 22 up and over the San Diego. I may have cursed because I wasn't on the air then. I may have cursed at a school bus who was not turning out, trying to go over the pass. But then we got over it, and, a couple of glasses of wine once I got there, and we were good.
That's awesome, dude. You're the man. Give my best to your wife, and we'll talk soon, brother.
All right, you boys keep it clean, all right?
We will.
Yeah, that's right.
Body mouths on the air.
That's right. Make sure you go over all audio before you play it out over the air.
All right, you guys are the best.
There you go. There's Justin Myers, host of Rip City Mornings here in the Rip City Drive. Sisters is nice. Underrated out there.
Yeah.
I've driven up there. I've called high school games from Sisters. I love the big trees out there. I like that whole drive up 22. It's beautiful going past Staten, past Detroit Lake, over the San Diego Pass down to that area. Not far from Bend. It's a good area.
It's great. There's also a great ice cream place just as you're coming into town. Snow something. I can't remember what it's called, but in the summer, packed. It's just packed, but great ice cream.
All right, so I don't understand college football. Look, I understand that. I know what we've talked about, right? These fools that run the bowls, they want to have access to money in their pockets. That's why they're going to have games in these bowl sites. And we know that the advertisers, there's money in these championship games. But I just think that if you get rid of that model, right, you're expanding to 12 teams, it's okay to freshen things up and move away from that model. There's still going to be plenty of money to go around for everyone. I just think this is going to be a big miss because, again, if all the conferences were equal, then it would be different. But they're not. And so you'll get 2 teams in from lesser conferences that are not as good as some of the other at-large teams from the Big Ten or the SEC, and they're going to get buys. And that's crazy to me.
And I think it's almost, I would say, okay to let them in. Just don't give them automatic buys.
No.
If they don't rank in the top 4 of what your rankings are, let them go to wherever they're, 7th, 8th, whatever they are.
Yeah.
It's silly to give them a buy. That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. But that's been college football my whole life.
Yeah.
It started out where we couldn't even get certain teams to match up for a national championship game because it was voted by the AP, the writers, and the coaches. And you had these bowl alliances where certain teams had to go to a certain bowl and couldn't match up to play Miami, who was in the Orange Bowl. We saw that with Washington and Miami back in 91. That was a big issue. And then we got the BCS where you had computers and the rankings and all that stuff to give us 2 teams to play in a championship game. That was better. Then we moved to the 14 playoff, and it has been much better than the BCS, but not perfect because it's only 4 teams, and that created controversy this past year because they selected the 4 best teams instead of what people thought were the most deserving with Florida State. So now you move to a field where everyone would appear to be satisfied, but because of the way they're going to handle it with the conference champions, there's going to be more frustration and more irritation at the end of the year when these teams get awarded their buys who aren't as deserving because they're not as good.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, and I heard this even before they decided 12 teams is too many. There aren't 12 good teams worthy of playing for the national title. My argument with that, Chad, is, yeah, I think you're right. But I think if you let those teams in and give them all the practices that they're allowed to have when they're in the playoffs, that makes them better. It makes their recruiting better. Over time, I think it strengthens everybody. A rising tide raises all boats. And I think other teams will be better.
Plus, there are teams, and we've seen this in college football. I think I'll use Arizona as an example from last year. They lost a few games early, close games, but they were playing their very best football at the end of the year, which culminated in that victory over Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. You can catch a hot team that doesn't have as high of a ranking that may be able to have success in the playoff because they're hitting on all cylinders when those playoff games hit. Those are the type of teams I'm going to pay attention to. Who gets it together over the last quarter of the season and enters the playoff on a hot streak? Like, that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
There'll be upsets. There will be. We don't think so, but you're right. The competition is going to create better football teams, and you'll have teams who get an opportunity to take on one of these big teams from the Big Ten or the SEC that will knock them off. I don't know how often it will happen, but we will see upsets.
And we need more games on college campuses, right?
Yeah. And we were told forever that a 16 would never beat a 1 in March Madness. That happened. So, it's going to be fun to watch. But, again, and this is just going to be the story for the rest of my life. No matter how many teams, they're always going to find a way to screw it up because I think they overthink it, Godfather.
Yeah.
Well, what about the conference championships? What about the bowl games? They make it too difficult.
The problem with the NCAA, though, is there's always been too many conflicts of interest. That's the problem. They got all these guys who used to run these bowls making a lot of money off them, and they feel obligated. Yeah, we're taking their bowl game away. Well, let's go ahead and give them a playoff game, and that's what's going to happen.
I think what they should do is select the top 11 teams in the rankings and then add the 12th team in, which is your group of 5 conference champ, and then play every single playoff game on campus sites except for the championship. That would be awesome. That's the way it should be. But now they're going to shift it away. You'll get some campus sites, but then they're going to shift them off to the bowl games. And then that doesn't create the type of atmosphere you want because it's not the same as being on a campus.
Not at all.
And the cost of travel and getting to those games can be a problem. I just don't like it. I wish they were doing it that way, but they're not. I'm happy they're expanding, and I'm with you. Instead of going to 14, forget that. Just go to 16. You know you're going to arrive at 16 in the near future. Just go there now.
Yeah.
16 teams in a college football playoff would be wildly awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It would be hard. You would have much less frustration across the country because 16 teams, no one's going to care too much about the 16th team, but you get a lot of teams in there, and all the power conferences would be greatly represented.
They'd all make a lot of money off it.
And that's what it comes down to. That's why I can guarantee you we'll get to 16.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we talked about with the NBA All-Star Game, it all comes back to politics and money, Godfather.
It's the same thing. Politics and money. Same thing.
Same thing. You're right. Same thing. All right, we'll keep things rolling here on the show. We'll come back. I had a interesting scenario last night I want to run by you and see how you would handle that type of situation. We'll get to the No Bull Tour with those fools that used to play with MJ coming up at 5. And then we'll talk about Antonio Pierce and his coaching genius, his plan to take down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Good luck with that.
Crazy.
All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you. You can reach out. You'll find Dwight on X at Dwight James. You'll find me there at Chad in Rip City. Telephone number here if you want to jump on board is 503-248-0620. The Blazers are going to be back in action on Friday. The Nuggets are in town. Tip-off at 7. I'll have game day starting at 4:30. All right, Godfather, I want to run this by you last night, and I just want to know how you would react to this situation. I stopped off at the grocery store after work. I got back to Vancouver. I stopped off at the grocery store, needed to pick up a few items for myself and for Puppy Shots. And as I was going back to my car, it was already dark outside, and the parking lot's not well lit, and it was raining a little bit. And I hear this voice behind me, "Hey, excuse me, sir." And right away, I'm like, oh, no. Someone's going to hit me up for something here. And I look back, and it was a lady, middle-aged lady. I don't know how old she was, probably somewhere around my age. But she said, "Would you mind giving me a ride to my home?" And right away in my mind, because I'm conditioned this way, I'm immediately like, this is a little dicey, right?
Yeah, it sounds dicey to me.
And I hate that I think that way because we've conditioned ourselves to a point where we don't want to take time for people. And I hate that. And so I never want to be okay with that. I want to break that mold. And so I looked at her, and she looked fine. And she was carrying groceries with her, so I could tell she had just been shopping. And I said, sure. And I asked her what her name was, and she told me, and I told her my name. And so I cleared out my backpack and stuff from the front seat, and she got in. And she didn't live too far away, probably about 7 minutes from the grocery store, not far from where I live. And I knew the area in which she had described to me, up by the Chevron station off 179th in North Vancouver. And she was explaining to me that her husband is, he's older, but he's got a low blood sugar issue. And then he's also had some cognitive issues lately. And so she thinks that he forgot that he was at the store with her and just drove home, right?
At least that's his story.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Yeah.
So she was explaining it to me, and so I drove her to her house, and she's like, "Oh, you don't have to drive me all the way. You can just drop me off at the gas station." I'm like, "That's nonsense. It's raining, and it's cold outside. I'll just drive you the rest of the way." And I'm glad I did, because the distance, even from the gas station to her home, was a few blocks. It would have been a horrendous walk. And so I drove her all the way home, and then she offered me money. "Do you need any money?" I said, "No, it's a short drive. It's no big deal." So she got out and went inside, and she was fine. But I hate that we're at a place in society now where we don't trust people anymore. Like, we just automatically assume the worst in everyone. And it reminds me of conversation I used to have with Nana when she was still around. And because I would always ask her questions about, like, what have you noticed with change over the course of time in your life? What concerns you? What have you noticed? What's going on? And she would tell me about how when she grew up in her town of Ponca City, Oklahoma, that homes during that time were designed with porches, right?
Sure.
Front porches where people would hang out on the front porch.
Oh,
they had
yeah.
the porch swing.
Mm-hmm.
They would sit outside and do things outside. But they would also, at the same time that they're on the front porch, their neighbors were also on the front porch. So you were communicating with your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
You knew your neighbors, you knew their kids, and you were involved in their lives on some level. And she said that was wonderful. But she said over the course of time, what happened is that houses started being created with garage doors, electric garage doors, where you would open up the garage door, you drive in, you close the garage door, and then you go downstairs to your television room and flip on the TV. And she said the TV, in her mind, changed a lot of different things because people started spending less time outside on the porch, and then houses started being built without front porches, and people were spending more time in their living room watching TV instead of being out with the community. And she thought that was a problem, because if you're watching TV and you're getting bad news all the time, or you're watching violence all the time, that she thought that would impact or had impacted the way people interact with one another. And that made some sense to me. And so I thought about that last night as I was driving this lady home, where it's like she was perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we're always like, okay, what's the scam? Is this person trying to attack me? What's going to happen here? But I probably reacted the way anyone else would, right? What do you want? Are you trying to hurt me? Like, that goes through all of our minds.
I think it all would depend on, sad to say, her appearance, whether she looked like, and you can't judge people this way, but you do. She had groceries, which means, she'd been in the store, she had money, she bought groceries. Her story sounds plausible, I guess.
Yeah.
she didn't look like somebody who was wanting to cause you trouble,
Yeah.
apparently. So
I-
you have to trust your instincts on that, right?
I did. I judged her right away based on her appearance
Yeah.
and how she was communicating with me. I could tell she wasn't under the influence of anything,
Right.
and she was very sweet, whatever that means. But that's how she came across to me. So I'm like, no problem. I'd be happy to give you a ride home.
Yeah.
So
You're a humanitarian.
I don't think so. I just know that, there are situations where, like, even if you're in the mall with the kiosk people, but a lot of times if I see people hanging out in front of a store, like sometimes I'll walk away from that side because
Of course.
I don't want to get hammered, right? Because it's coming and we can sense that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
Well, I'm proud of you for doing that. And I have to say, you're probably you're a better person than me. I'm not sure I would have done that. It would depend on what I saw, I guess, but I would be very skeptical of that. Did she not have a cell phone where she could call him or something?
I didn't ask her that.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like that would be appropriate to ask that. Well, don't you have a cell phone? No, I don't. Okay.
Well, I would, I think it's fair to say you couldn't call him.
Yeah, but that's not nice. I mean, that would be like me trying to come up with the reasons of why I don't want to give her a ride.
Well, that's what it would be.
Yeah. I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I don't know. In today's world, like, again, this is what I wonder. Like, is the world worse today than it was when I was younger?
Of course.
Or do we just think it's worse because of all the different media that we have access to reporting all the different things going on?
No, it's worse.
It is?
You don't think so?
I'm just asking the question.
Well, we talk all the time, Chad, about how when we were kids, you come home from school, get on the bicycle, and you go down to the park, or you go somewhere and play ball at a vacant lot.
That's true. But back then, I didn't have the computer from the state alerting me to all the red dots and all of the registered sex offenders that were around my neighborhood.
That's true. But you did that. And I think people were, you kept the front door open at night. You were out on the porch. It was a lot different.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I see it in my mind. I just don't know how close to reality that is. That's what I think, but I just wonder, is it much worse? I don't know.
Well, I'm sure the dangers were there.
Yeah.
I don't think they were as prevalent as they are today because of various things like drugs, poverty that make people desperate, with good reason, I think, sometimes. And all those things weren't as prevalent in those days.
Yeah. I mean, those things never crossed my mind when I was younger. Never thought about it at all. Of course, I grew up in a small town, so I knew pretty much everyone in the neighborhood.
Well, all you heard from your parents was don't speak to strangers.
Yeah, don't talk to strangers.
Yeah, that's what you heard.
Stranger danger.
Yeah.
That was the big deal. Don't talk to strangers, and don't get in the car with a stranger.
Right. Yeah.
My brother and I did that once. We got in a car because my dad was playing in a softball tournament, and we got stuck down at the bottom of the hill. And this couple gave us a ride back up there. My mom was absolutely beside herself and furious that we jumped in the car with strangers. And she's right. That was a dumb move,
Yeah.
But she was really ticked off. It wasn't too often I saw my mom like with fire coming out of her ears, but that was one of those times. We never got in another car with strangers again after that. She was really mad. Oh, well. All right. When we come back, the No Bull Tour. But I think there's a lot of bull involved in it.
Yes.
I just want to know Michael Jordan's reaction. That's really what I care most about. He's probably laughing his ass off right now.
That's it.
We'll give you the details on the No Bull Tour coming up next on the Rip City Drive. Bears quarterback Justin Fields says he's tired of all the trade talk. He just wants it to be over. Of course, the Bears sitting with the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft and have access to Caleb Williams or Drake May. Your Portland Trailblazers back in action on Friday, getting ready for the stretch run following the All-Star break. The defending champion Denver Nuggets in town. Tip-off from Moda will be at 7 Alive game day at 4:30 here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Scoot Henderson will start at guard the rest of the year. That confirmed by Coach Billups. Charlie Woods, son of Tiger, is going to compete in a pre-qualifier for his chance to secure a spot in the PGA's Tour Cognizant Classic. That's going to be down in Palm Beach. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming at you right now. We'll have golf show tickets to give away the rest of the week right here on the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. All right, Godfather, this is pretty crazy, but there's the No Bull Tour, and it's going to be a combination of ex-Michael Jordan teammates. Scottie Pippen, Luke Longley, and Horace Grant have partnered with Australia's National Basketball League to announce a tour called No Bull, which will feature the former NBA players discussing Michael Jordan and the 1990s Chicago Bulls. The tour will begin February 23rd in Tasmania and then head to Melbourne and Sydney. So the way I read this is these former players who played with MJ during his run with the Chicago Bulls, they saw the Last Dance, which was Michael Jordan's side of the story. Mm-hmm. And now these players are going to take to the road to share their side of the story, their version of the Last Dance, after MJ put out the very popular, docuseries, which was amazing.
Well, I think that's good, Chad, because I know you, for one, have been waiting to hear Luke Longley's side of the story. Right?
Yeah. And Scottie Pippen, who I obviously adored as a basketball player during his time with Chicago and then with the Blazers, he was tremendous, one of the best basketball players I've ever seen. He's lost credibility with me when he started going around calling Phil Jackson a racist and throwing some of his ex-teammates like Michael Jordan under the bus.
Yeah.
All because he's trying to sell a book.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but you lose me on that kind of stuff, man.
He was always so jealous of Michael, though. I think he always thought Michael was stealing a lot of his shade. He just thought he was bigger than he was, really. He thought he was more important than Michael sometimes, I think.
Do you think he really believed that?
Some of the stuff he said over the years was crazy.
What I don't understand is, let's say that you're one of his teammates and you didn't like The Last Dance. You didn't like his version of it. I watched it and thought it was wildly awesome.
Yeah.
Who cares? You had a chance to play with arguably the greatest basketball player ever and win multiple championships. And my guess would be, just by being affiliated with those teams and being a multi-time champion, playing with Michael Jordan, that their lives have benefited greatly from that, especially financially, right?
Yeah. Michael Jordan made him a lot of money. There's no question about it.
Those Bulls teams are like the most famous basketball teams of all time at the height of MJ's greatness.
Well, the jealousy doesn't work. People see right through it. And all of the way he feels about Michael, he's going on tour to talk about it. He's already written it in his book. He's said it in every interview he's had. And frankly, I don't think anybody cares what he thinks about the documentary or about Michael. They don't care.
No. What we cared about was Michael Jordan sharing his version.
Yeah.
And what he thought going through those incredible runs with his teammates and with Phil Jackson and the pressure he was under. Because it's Michael Jordan. We care about him He was the man responsible for that. Yes, he needed his teammates. Yes, Phil Jackson was a big part of it. But I watched all those teams. Michael Jordan carried them.
Yeah.
I know people hate to admit that, maybe especially if you're Scottie Pippen, but MJ carried them, especially in postseason time.
Well, Scotty says he didn't win anything till I showed up, which
So,
is true, but not in the way he says it.
I just don't see the appeal in hearing from these guys.
Yeah.
Luke Longley seemed like a nice guy. I couldn't care less what he has to say about MJ and those runs with the Bulls.
Well, there's no accident that this whole thing it's taking place in Australia, where Luke Longley's from. So
He's wildly popular there.
yeah, and they'll sell some tickets over there. I don't think they'd sell many over here, especially after you do the first one and reporters go and they report what you said. Maybe there's even video of it. That would be it. There'd be no point in going anywhere else. What more could you say?
What makes Michael so great is that since he has quit playing, he doesn't speak very often.
No, he doesn't. He's very quiet.
And that's a good thing because with the quiet, the mystery grows, the legend grows. He's not out there trying to remind everyone how great he was.
Well, that's just it. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to tell anyone anything. And when people talk, oh, who's the GOAT, all this stuff, frankly, I don't think he cares.
He couldn't care less.
No, he knows who he was.
He knows who he was. He's satisfied with his resume, and he's at peace with it. He's not going around trying to remind everyone how great he is.
And oh, by the way, he's living a pretty darn nice life right now.
The best life.
Yeah.
That's why he's going to sit back and just laugh his ass off at these guys out there sharing their story. So if I were one of those guys, one of his teammates, I would leave The Last Dance as it is. That's MJ. He was the man. We all benefited from playing with him. We would have never accomplished what we did without him.
Mm-hmm.
Let him share his side, and that's it. And we just move on. But going out on your own little no-bull tour, I just think it's pointless. And Scottie Pippen's crazy now. And it's unfortunate because the more he talks, the more it tarnishes what I thought about him.
Yeah. He was a great Robin to his Batman, to Michael's Batman. He was a good second banana. He was good for what he did. People had a lot of respect, tremendous defender, hit some critical shots, handled the ball, could handle playmaking duties, actually. He was a heck of a player, one of the top 75 ever. He's on that list. What more do you want to claim for yourself? What more do you want?
I think he's still bitter about that contract, too, when Krause got him to that long-term deal where he wasn't being paid.
Yeah, and guess whose fault that was? His.
Yeah, he wanted the security of the long-term deal at the time, and it turned out to be a bad deal. That's on him. Michael Jordan's not responsible for that.
Then he put his teammates in a bad position by sitting out part of the season. And he had a surgery that he could have had over the summer, right?
Yeah, he did that on purpose out of bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
He chose not to enter the game when he wasn't given the last shot against the Knicks in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's good for your reputation.
And went to Tony Kukoc. So, I don't know. Very strange. Very strange. Role players are what they are. I don't really care what the role player has to say. Now, if they want to tell me stories about MJ and some of the inner workings of how that went down, that interests me. But their version of what went down, it's like, I don't care about your version. You want the key piece.
Well, and a lot of those stories got out anyway. Everybody knows by now. Sam Smith wrote 2 great books about that team. And everybody knows about him punching Steve Kerr. And nobody thinks that was a good move. They know he was sometimes not a nice guy to his teammates. He bullied them at times. Everybody knows all that. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And again, I'm sure MJ probably looks back and realizes he could have handled one or two things better.
Mm-hmm.
But it worked. He got the most out of the guys he played with to be able to win. And that was his main objective. How can I get you to play the way I need you to play so that we can win?
And he parlayed that career into a financial bonanza such that he's earning more money now every year than any other former player will ever make after his career's over, ever, ever, ever.
Yes. And in a lot of ways, he's paved the way for a lot of athletes, high-level guys, to look into ownership, to get involved in business, to look at what they do differently to make sure that they set themselves up for a life after basketball.
Well, and how many players in those days before him had their own line of shoes and clothing? Damian Lillard now has his own shoe. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, it all started because of him. I know a lot of people like to throw shade at Michael for his inability to build a winner as an owner in Charlotte with the Hornets, right?
Yeah.
But I know the way MJ looks at it. Yeah. You laugh at me because I couldn't pick the right player or build a team that won a championship. But he probably looks at it and says, I'm the first majority owner of a sports team.
And by the way, I made hundreds of millions of dollars when I sold my team.
Yes. I haven't played basketball in 30 years, and I still have people wearing my shoes. He is an overwhelming success in anything and everything he's touched.
Yeah.
And I applaud him for it because he's paved the way for a lot of other guys, right?
Yeah.
You know, we know that LeBron, he's probably looking to get into ownership too. Well, Michael kind of created the pathway on how to make that happen. It's genius. So I think it's funny when these guys, the role players on these teams, I'll be interested to hear what they say and what comes out. But now I know that Scotty obviously is a bitter individual, and so
Yes.
some of the things he says I have to take with a grain of salt.
He's even probably more angry that his ex-wife was dating Michael's son.
I would say that that's probably more irritation than you can imagine.
I would think that irritated the daylights out of him.
I still can't believe that Michael's son was with, I think they just broke up.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. But the fact that he's between the sheets with Scotty's ex-wife is wild to me. And I'm sure MJ was not a fan of that maneuver.
No, he wasn't.
Hey,
sure.
son, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's Scotty's ex-wife. What are you doing? You can have any woman you want, but not that one.
What is she? She was probably at least 25 years older than him. Probably.
I can't remember the exact age difference, but
Had to
I'm fascinated by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wild. And Larsa probably went after him to get at Scotty. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah. MJ doesn't want any part of that. That's a mess. Very messy. I don't know. What did you think? Did you like MJ?
Yeah, I liked him a lot better early in his career. He was much more accessible, Chad. I had several interviews with him. Even one, when he went to play baseball in Florida, I covered spring training. I walked into the White Sox clubhouse. He played the first 5 innings of a spring training game. I walked into their clubhouse and was the only writer in there for about 20 minutes and talked to him about baseball and basketball and all that stuff. He was always great. He was always great. Then things started to turn when SI did the cover story on him about baseball and made fun of his ability to hit and play ball. And
That pissed him off.
he turned on SI for sure. And then it started getting tougher. But I understood that too because the demands on him later in his career were 10 times what they were earlier.
Were you impressed with his love and knowledge of the game of baseball and what he was up against?
Oh, yeah. I respected the idea that he would even try it. There's not a lot of guys who had succeeded in one sport like him who would be willing to fail in another sport. And he failed, but not to the degree people predicted. He ended up being better than people thought.
So it wasn't as bad as what people make it out
Well,
to be
he wasn't.
baseball-wise.
I do not believe he was going to be a major league player. If he had started younger and gone through the whole farm system and all that, he had a chance. He was such a tremendous athlete. But no, but he wasn't hopeless. It wasn't embarrassing. He did okay. He played for Tito Francona, in Birmingham. And Tito still has good things to say about him in the clubhouse, on the field, and everything.
Well, it reminds me of what you were saying about the All-Star competitions over the weekend where a lot of the big-time stars don't want to participate because
Right.
they don't want to embarrass themselves.
Yeah. LeBron won't do the dunk contest. He doesn't want to lose it.
And Michael was willing to go out there and play baseball. And you and I both know that find something harder to do in sport than hit a friggin' baseball.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't afraid to do the dunk contest either. I mean.
He didn't win the dunk contest every year he participated.
Right.
But he
that
was
was
willing to go
okay.
out there and compete.
Yeah. He was still a pretty good player.
All right, when we come back, we'll focus in on the Raiders. They apparently have got, well, not the Jordan rules, but the Patrick Mahomes rules, according to Antonio Pierce. We'll hear from him, and then we'll discuss whether or not this is a smart tactic. And we'll let you decide. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, Rip City Drive, Dwight and Chad with you. The Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, now have a new head coach, Antonio Pierce, who had the interim tag lifted. And probably their signature win of the season for a non-playoff team was the Christmas Day victory in Kansas City over the Chiefs. They were pretty happy about that.
They were very overjoyed about it, yes.
And apparently that was the result of a newfound understanding of how to play the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. And they're calling it the Patrick Mahomes rules, where they're going to get physical with him. And he joined a few of his players on a podcast. And I want to play this for you so you can hear it, and then you can decide for yourself what you think about this new process for the Chiefs. I think it's crazy. I don't understand why anyone would talk about how they're going to attack the Kansas City Chiefs. Just keep it quiet, but we'll play it and let you decide. Max Crosby, I think it's called The Rush with Max Crosby. And Max Crosby is one of my favorite players in the NFL. The guy's motor doesn't stop. He's a great football player, and he's got a podcast, and Antonio Pierce joined it to talk about this. Let's take a listen.
So the first game, you guys remember, we were up 14-0, and I talked about like, hey man, we need to come out. Enough is enough. We need to put our foot on their throats. But I didn't think I did a good enough job of saying how we need to finish the second half. So going into next week, that's all I thought about. Like, man, how can I just paint a picture of how I see the game playing out? That's really what I think I do really well. I can play the game out before it happens. Yeah. So what I did is I went through it by quarters: Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So on Wednesday, we came in. It was Thomas Hearns, Hagler, right here in Caesars, 85. First round. Slugging. I don't know who won. We don't know who won the first round, but God, they were going at it. Right? Boom. Whoa. Thursday, we pop up. I put Diaz and McGregor on. Yeah. I showed the second round of that fight. We all know how that went down. Yeah. The first one, boom, boom. And then you see the choke out, and we cut it off. And then we went into, we got the Jordan rules, and I'm calling now from now on, as long as I'm here, the Patrick Mahomes rules. So you remember when Jordan was going through it with the Pistons, all those guys in the 80s before he came Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, the Pistons used to whoop his. Anytime he came to the hole, elbows, filling them, love taps. We touched them. We in the head, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm touching you. So I showed those guys Jordan getting his whooped consistently. And on the side, I got the screen. I got these two. And it's kind of like, this is almost a little gory. Like, we're getting crazy now, right? This fucking brawling. And we got these two screens showing of us just getting after it, Raiders versus Chiefs. And then the last one, I showed Muhammad Ali in the 15th round, the 12th round of his fights. Just giving it to him, finish. I said, man, when we get to the end, we got to finish him. We got to put him away. Yep. We got to put him away the way we want to put him away. And if you go back to that game, they did a job. We talked about that second quarter, dominating the second quarter. Yep. Defensively, 2 touchdowns in 7 seconds. They were so hyped, I called a timeout just to calm us down. I don't know what's going on. I'm like, everybody calm down like this. I got Jack Jones over there. They fighting. I'm like, Max, I'm like, all right, everybody stop. We called timeout just to slow the pace down because I'm like, we're going, we're ready. And then you see Patrick Mahomes looking around. But the best part about that game, Max knows it. You know, we did a great job in the fourth quarter in the red zone on 4th down when they kept going for it. Patrick put his cape on. I always tell Max and Devontae and our stars, hey, put your cape on. You're a superhero. Yeah. On Sundays, I look at you like my comic book. Yeah. I open it up, I want to see what Max Crosby does. I want to see what Devontae does. Well, we saw Patrick Mahomes try to do the same thing, and these guys wouldn't let go. I mean, they were relentless for 60 minutes, and then what we wanted to do is what I call the best play in football, is we wanted to get to victory formation. Yeah. And there was no fair dodge. I told the offense, no fair dodging. What does that mean? Bring a guy fullback in, and you know what's coming. And we sat there on the sideline. We were celebrating, watching 2 knees. They got the victory on Christmas Day. So that was a build-up, and they played it out, man. I give them credit. They again, it goes back to what Max said at the very beginning, like the vision, the strategy. Man, they play it. I've done it. I can talk about it. You feel me. Yeah. Everybody in here, you feel me. Right? Yeah. But they got to go do it. Yeah. They got to go do it. And that's why I told them, you got the keys. Yeah, here go the car, here go the road. You got the keys, go drive.
There you go. Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders.
Yeah, they got it all mapped out, right? They're going to goon him up.
Well, here's my question for you. If that's how they're going to play it, That's fine. But why are you talking about it? Why would you want to alert the NFL, number one, to the fact that you're going to try and goon up a game with the Kansas City Chiefs? The last thing the league wants is Patrick Mahomes getting hit late or physical play that could possibly result in him getting knocked from a game. And they want freedom of movement. So you don't alert the league to it because they've already got a bullseye on the Raiders' back anyways. They're always one of the league's most highest penalized teams because of their reputation. And not only that, but I wouldn't want to alert the Chiefs that, hey, we've got the Patrick Mahomes rules because now they're going to be prepared and looking for battle when they take the field. I don't know, Godfather. I watched all those Jordan series back in the day with the Jordan rules and the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me too.
their focus was very simple. Like, we're going to get physical and we're going to try and maul them so they can't use their skill to beat us. And that was almost accepted back then because that's the way the game was played. But I think a lot of times their intent was to go out and hurt the guys.
Yeah, they targeted Jordan, and they hit him while he was in the air. They gooned him up because that's what that team did. They did it not only to Michael Jordan, they did it to Clyde Drexler. They did it to Terry Porter. They did it to anybody they could get away with. Talking about Lambier, Mahorn. For a while, Rodman was there. You know, this is what they did to players and teams. That was their whole philosophy. They held, they grabbed, and they got away with a lot. They were in the forefront of, let's just see how much we can get away with. And if we do this the whole game, eventually the referees will get tired of calling it a foul. And that's what happened. They got away with murder.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the team getting physical. I don't have a problem with a team wanting to defend and being an intimidating force. I think that's a smart way to play. But you've got to do it within the confines of the rules of the game.
Yeah.
I don't want Patrick Mahomes to get hurt either. I want him out there on the field. I like watching him play.
Yeah. I don't like a team trying to hurt another player.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, of course.
But I also hate the Raiders, and I know what their reputation's been for years. But that's what it sounds like to me. It's like, hey, we're going to make sure that they feel us, and if we knock him out of the game, then so be it. That gives us a better chance to win.
What are the chances now, after coming out with it, they're going to get away with that?
Yeah, they won't. Because now when those two teams play, the league's going to be on heightened alert. The memos will come down. We don't want any nonsense going on out there. Any type of late hit, anything that's perceived to be unnecessary, throw the flag. And they'll penalize him to death.
Yeah.
That's how that's going to go down.
Well, and that league is full of people. Players consider themselves almost fraternity brothers in a way. They for the most part, don't want to hurt anybody because it could be them targeted next.
You're 100% right.
You're going way over the line when you try to do stuff like that.
The way Lo Neal always told me is that players, almost 99.9%, there's an understanding amongst players like, hey, we're going to go out here, we're going to play hard, we're going to hit hard, but we're not going to put any of us at unnecessary risk that could take food off of our family's table.
Mm-hmm.
Because they understood the value of their bodies in a game where their life expectancy was short because the injury risk is so high before you have guys trying to take you out, right?
Yeah.
And they've done a good job over the years of cleaning it up because it used to be a much dirtier game in the NFL back in the mid to late 80s when I watched with the late hits and what they would do to quarterbacks and stuff.
Yeah.
So my whole thought with the Raiders here, it's like, to me, that's the sign of weakness because it's like we don't have the skill to be able to line up and score with the Chiefs, so we've got to muck it up to go out there and win. You can muck it up, run the football, get physical, try to get up in the face of Mahomes and stuff. But if you cross the line, then that's where I have a problem with it.
I also, there's something really unseemly about a coach and a player getting together and just sort of bragging about doing that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on.
Well, Max Crosby was the leading voice to get Antonio Pierce the job, right?
Yeah.
He went to Mark Davis, the owner. The players wanted Pierce really bad. That was a red flag to me right away. Anytime players are clamoring for a guy, that's usually a sign of a problem.
Yeah.
You want your players to respect your coach. I don't necessarily need them being chummy with each other, hanging out on podcasts and doing a podcast. I don't think Sean Payton's going to be going to any player's podcast anytime soon to hang out. I just don't see that going down.
No, it shouldn't go down.
There's got to be some form of separation there. But Max Crosby's like holding court and hanging out with his coach. No wonder you want him to be the head coach.
Yeah, they're yucking it up, having a high old time. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's not going to work. I can tell you that much. The league won't allow it.
They better not.
The Super Bowl was a prime example. Patrick Mahomes is wildly popular, and he brings a lot of eyeballs to the TV set, right? He's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. The league's going to go through great lengths to protect him and protect the Chiefs because it's a moneymaker for them.
Yeah.
They're going to muck it up. We got the Mahomes rules. I don't know.
Sad.
To me, what you do is you keep this quiet. It's like, hey, internally, you're like, look, guys, here's our plan. This is how we're going to play the Chiefs. They're dominating the division. The madness has got to stop, and we're not going to stand for it. We're not going to let them come in and just start, just steamroll us every time. We're going to show resistance. Here's the plan. And then you enact the plan, and you build your team to be able to compete with that, right? That's what you do. But you don't go publicly and start talking about it and laughing it up like you've got some master plan. No, you keep it quiet. But once you take it public and alert the NFL and the Chiefs to what's going on, then it's almost a joke.
Yeah, and let's face it, they're not the first team to figure out, I think we should get a little more physical with Mahomes. Well, that's easier said than done, number one. And number two, if there's any quarterback more protected now than Patrick Mahomes, I don't know who it is, because he got the benefit of a lot of late, that's a late hit. Well, maybe not.
After Brady's gone now, he's the golden child.
Yeah.
He's the golden boy of the NFL.
With good reason, right? You don't want him hurt.
You and I have talked about this at length. The NFL is awesome, but with bad quarterbacks, it's a very bad game. Bad quarterback play ruins a good football game real quick. But when you have stars at that position like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, why do you think you and I were so upset when Aaron Rodgers went down to start the year?
Yeah.
Because the Jets would have been a fascinating story throughout the year with Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback.
Totally wiped out with one injury.
One injury, and the Jets become a non-story. I couldn't care less about watching the Jets' awful offense.
I rest my case. No reason whatsoever to watch them after 3 plays.
I think that's exactly what you told me after that game on Monday night to open the year. Well, I've got no reason to watch the Jets anymore.
Yeah, and it proved out to be true. Unless they were playing somebody I wanted to see play. That was it.
But you've seen this over the time in sports, right, where there's a dominant force. It could be a dynasty-type team, and then all of a sudden you get this new idea of how we're going to deal with that, right? I mean, the Celtics, when they played the Lakers and the Showtime Lakers back in the 80s, that was a team that you didn't want them to get comfortable and start running up and down the floor.
Right.
Because they would school you right out of the gym. They would clown you because they had the athletes to get up and run. So what did the Celtics do? Well, we're going to get physical and muck up the game and make it a half-court game and take their running game away.
Hey, look back at the Knicks when Pat Riley was there, and you had Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley, and Patrick Ewing playing up front. That was a goon squad.
Yeah.
I mean, they
took the same approach the Pistons did on MJ.
Yeah, they did. It was the same thing.
Same thing. It didn't work.
Dick Harder was the defensive coach of those teams. He knew what to do.
Yeah. And Pat Riley, even though he was the mastermind behind those Showtime Lakers, that won 5 titles in the 80s, that's not his style. He was a bruiser of a basketball player. He preferred the Knicks teams that were more physical.
But Pat is one of those great coaches who looks at his players and say, well, we can't run with these guys. What can we do? Well, I think we can beat people up. So let's try that for a while.
Yeah, he understood what he had. He's like, I've got Mason, Oakley.
You talk about mucking up games. That team, more than the Pistons, it was, I thought, painful to watch them play. I mean, they were grabbing and holding and pushing, undercutting, all the bad stuff they were doing.
All right, let's just take a look at a few of the names on that roster. This is back in 93. Let's see here. Greg Anthony, Rolando Blackman, Anthony Bonner, Tony Campbell, Hubert Davis, Patrick Ewing, Derek Harper, Anthony Mason, Charles Oakley. Yeah, all those guys. Charles Smith. That was a bruiser of a basketball team right there. And they knew the only way they could beat Chicago was to get physical and muck up the games. Yeah, this has been going on for years. The Raiders are the latest team to try it, and it's going to fail miserably.
They easily, that Knicks team could have won an NBA title, too. There was Patrick Ewing missing a layup dead cold layup to win a game against Chicago. And then there was Charles Smith, I think, missed like back-to-back putbacks in one of those games.
The one that Patrick Ewing missed was against the Pacers.
Oh, Pacers.
That was the Pacers series. The Game 5, and this is I just watched the game the other night. I was telling you about it. Game 5 at Madison Square Garden. That year, the Knicks had home court, and they had won the first 2 games at home. The Bulls even up the series with their 2 games at home, and so you had the pivotal Game 5 back at New York. And if you go back and watch the end of that game, the Knicks had multiple shots on offensive rebounds by Charles Smith, point blank.
Yeah.
And he couldn't get it in.
I know. It was amazing.
And the Bulls ran off the court and were victorious. They went back and closed it out in 6. They got it done in 6, but Charles Smith was the one.
Yeah.
And he had multiple guys, MJ, Scotty, a variety of different Bulls right there to deny each opportunity. I thought for sure he was going to score. You go back and watch, it's like, how did he not get that in? Crazy. And that was the game, too, where MJ, for these Bulls that had such an issue with him, he scored like 18 straight points for them down the stretch of that game. They needed that to get over in that situation.
Yeah.
The Knicks were good that year.
Well, and that was the year, too. If they win that series, they're going to win the championship.
Yes. Who was the team? The Suns, the 93 Suns.
Right.
They showed I watch Hardwood Classics. Sometimes when I'm flipping through the channels. Last night it was the 93 West Finals, Sonics and Suns, Game 7 down in Phoenix. The game was on, so I watched it while I was eating dinner, and Charles Barkley had a monster game, like 40-plus and 20-plus.
Yeah. He was great for the Suns. MVP that year.
MVP. They had some good players. Richard Dumas had a great year when he was able to stay clean.
Yeah.
He was big time. Tom Chambers was still on that team.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Johnson, who was
great player.
Such a great player. Such a quick first step. Dan Marley was on that team. Danny Ainge was on that team. Because Ainge was with Portland, then he went to Phoenix.
Yeah.
So
he was a free agent.
Yeah, Ainge hit that hot streak where he's with the Celtics, went to the finals a bunch of times, went to the finals with the Blazers, and then cashed in with the Suns and went back to the finals.
Yeah.
Not a bad, good career choices for Danny Ainge.
He was picking his own teams before LeBron was.
What, Barkley? Yeah, I'll take that team. That was good.
Don't forget, he was with Sacramento for a year. That's where the Blazers got him in a trade. Byron Irvin, they traded for Danny Ainge.
Out of Missouri, Byron Irvin.
Yeah. That's a guy Clyde said was going to be a great player. That's when I started thinking maybe players don't exactly scout other players very well.
Yeah. Byron Irvin was great at Missouri, not good in the NBA.
Yeah, not good.
I went back and watched on YouTube last night. I watched the 4th quarter of the 1987 Eastern Conference Finals at the Boston Garden with the Celtics and Pistons. If you watch the game, you wouldn't even recognize it as NBA basketball as the way it's played today.
Mm-hmm.
Physical. Absolutely unbelievable.
No layups in those days, too. They would take you down before you got a layup.
Crazy.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Brutal game. All right, we'll come back and put a cap on the show. You got the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad. Yeah, Godfather and I just did a little dive into YouTube. Charles Smith at the end of that Game 5, 93 Eastern Conference Finals, 4 opportunities right at the rim, and he kept getting rejected. He couldn't get it in. They're down 1 point. They win that game, they're going to win the series.
Yeah, and one time he up-faked, had somebody in the air, went up, and someone else blocked the shot. None of them were fouls, too. They were all legit blocks.
Incredible. It's pretty amazing that Pat Riley and that Knicks team never won a championship.
Yeah.
They couldn't get over the hump. And then when they got to the finals, they had the 3-2 lead going back to Houston, and they blew both games on the road.
Yeah.
Thanks to John Starks, missing everything.
Yeah, the Game 7, he couldn't make a shot, let alone a 3.
It's amazing that you were at Madison Square Garden during the O.J. chase. That is fascinating to me.
That's an all-timer, Chad, to be there and have gone through that, because I'm telling you, the whole media area, all the monitors were on the chase. Nobody was watching the game. I think that was the game, too, that, what's his name? Oh, never mind. The guard from Houston had a great game.
Let's see here. The 2 guards on that team were Vernon Maxwell and Kenny Smith.
No, the guy off the bench.
Oh, Sam Cassell.
Yes.
E.T. Cassell.
Yes.
Yes.
I was going to say something disparaging about the way he looked, and you did it.
I just knew him for years. His nickname was E.T. Cassell because he looked extraterrestrial.
Yeah, and I think that was the game, and it was like, oh, at the end of the game, you look at the box score, oh, look at this, because everyone was locked in on the car chase. It was incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable.
In the middle of an NBA championship, no one cares about what's happening in the game because OJ's in a low-speed chase in California.
People don't even understand. I mean, he's like the most famous athlete in the country. He'd done all those commercials. He had done the Naked Gun movies.
He was on TV all the time.
All the time. He was like a totally famous guy, and here he is running from the law in a slow-speed chase through L.A. It was just incredible.
Wow. And he's calling and trying to get a hold of Bob Costas.
Yeah, it was. I can't even explain what a time that was.
I can't believe all the different events you've been to. We just established the other day you were there covering the Olympics when the whole Nancy Kerrigan / Tanya Harding thing went down.
No, I wasn't. I did not cover that Olympics.
Oh, you didn't cover that Olympics?
No, I was in Portland. I did not cover that one at all.
But you were in the 96 Olympics when the bomb went down.
When the bomb at Centennial Park, yeah. That was no fun. I wasn't a guy that enjoyed covering an Olympics, Chad, to be honest.
You usually gave that up to somebody else that
I
wanted
did,
to cover it.
yeah. I wasn't much interested in that. Gosh, I was at a lot of things, though.
What year did you hit did you get the columnist job at the Oregonian?
It would have been 90. It was about 94, I think.
Did you cover all the finals, the NBA finals after that?
I covered them before that. And after, like when I was covering the Blazers, they were always out of the playoffs. I'd go cover the finals even before they were in them. And then when I was the NBA guy, I always covered them too. And then as a columnist, I had my choice. Sometimes I covered them, sometimes not. I covered several of them. I covered probably 10 World Series, I think, and about 8 Super Bowls, some memorable World Series games. I was in Toronto when Joe Carter hit the home run in the bottom of the 9th to beat Mitch Williams, actually, local guy, West Lynn's Mitch Williams.
That's a big moment.
Yeah, it was. It was a big moment. And I gave Mitch so much credit afterwards. Stood in his locker and answered every single question anybody had for him.
So it was probably before your time. Were you covering the 88 World Series with the Dodgers and A's?
88. Which one was?
The Kirk Gibson home run. Were you at the Giddy?
No, not the Kirk Gibson. I was covering Dodgers-Yankees when Reggie was still playing for the Yankees.
Wow.
There was some great quotes that I can't share on the air from Reggie during that series.
So were you at the Yankees-Braves series in 96 when Leyritz hit the
Yes. That's when Andrew Jones homered his first 2 times up, and he was like 20 years old. And the Braves took the first 2 in New York.
And then the Yankees won 4 straight.
Yeah.
That was probably surprising to you at the time, right?
Yeah, it was. And Leyritz, that home run that Leyritz hit turned the whole World Series around. the Braves were going to win that game. They were going to be up 3-0.
And that would have ended the series. They would have won the series.
Yeah, well, yeah, up 3-0. Nobody'd ever come back from that at that point.
Huh. Wow.
But I didn't. I covered one of the ones I really enjoyed was the Marlins and the Indians that year.
Well, yeah, because you got to go back and hang out with the old manager.
Jim Leland and his coaching staff, they were with the Marlins at that time. And that was a good series because they won that game in, I think, the 10th inning, bottom of Game 7.
I always wanted to just have one moment in time where I could smoke a cig with Leland in the dugout. I always thought that was amazing.
I never smoked any cigarettes with him, but to me, he was very nice. And I was lucky because the late Tommy Sant was a really good friend of mine, and he was his first base coach in Pittsburgh and in Miami. So
it must have been total exhilaration for those guys to hang out with them after it was over and they had just won the championship. They must have been on cloud nine.
There's nothing like guys who have just won an achievement like that. Where in Miami, too, that was not a place that was accustomed to winning. They had really loaded up for that year. That was, back when the Marlins would load up, then the following year just tear it all apart again and start all over.
How was Phil Jackson to cover when he first took over for the Bulls? Has he always been difficult?
I would say from start to finish, he was very arrogant. That never changed much. Right from the start, you'd think, well, he's going to be, as a rookie coach, maybe he'll be. No, he was arrogant.
The same guy the whole way through.
Yeah.
How was Pat Riley to cover?
Well, it was another one of those deals where the LA guys said, oh, man, he's difficult. But to the visiting writers, he was always seemingly better.
Why is that?
I have no idea, really. Maybe he wasn't sick of us. I think the home writers get on your nerves, throughout a season. And I felt that from Blazer coaches. Over a course of a long season, you write things that irritate them. You just about have to. So you don't maybe get the access that a guy they don't even know gets.
Yeah, that's true.
But I remember Rick Adelman took over that year for Mike Schuler, and he was interim coach along with Jack Shallow. And it was a question of whether Rick was going to be hired. And they were playing Riley in the playoffs, the Lakers in the playoffs. And I went to Pat. I said, you roomed with Rick in Trailblazer training camp that year, and Riley got cut and left. But Rick made the team, was the captain of the Blazers. I said, they're still trying to decide about Rick. And I just need your opinion on how he's done as a head coach.
Oh, he gave him a glowing review, didn't he?
He told me, he said, I'll tell you what, you can write anything positive about Rick that you want and put my name on it.
He loved him.
That's what he said. Yeah, he thought Rick did a hell of a job, which Phil Jackson always ripped him. But Phil ripped a lot of other coaches. He thought he was Einstein compared to all the other dummies he was coaching against.
Phil played in that whole idea during that year leading up to the finals where the Blazers and Bulls met. Phil played into the psychology about how the Blazers were chokers and they couldn't get it done on the big stage.
But he was the Zen master, at that time. He was big time.
Arrogant.
They should have got him in 91 when they were in their first finals and the Blazers lost to
I can't believe they blew that series to the Lakers.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. That was their best team. That was a great team.
And the best team didn't even get to the finals that year.
Yeah, happens.
And the Lakers didn't even they got blasted by the Bulls.
Yeah. But the Blazers had beaten the Bulls twice that year, including in Chicago. They had the best record in the league. They were really good.
You're right. It would have been best to catch the Bulls before they'd won their first one and became the superpower. All right, big thanks to Michael Shacker for running everything. We appreciate you, Michael. Big thanks to Dick Stevens for joining us to talk Portland Golf Show. We'll have more tickets to give away tomorrow and on Friday. And also Justin Myers for stopping by. Have a good night, Godfather.
You too, Chad. Let's do it again tomorrow.